I'm Meeka, also known as the Moroccan Angel. If this is our first encounter, I would like to say welcome, and I'm happy you're here. If you should find my content spiritually enlightening, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to press the like button. It can be somewhat unnerving for some, predominantly Christians, but it's something that needs to be addressed nonetheless. The topic that we're going to focus on is entitled "The God Who Worshipped a God." Now, we know that some things are just undisputable, undeniable facts. One of them, relatable to human beings, is that humans need water, food, oxygen to survive. And if those things are taken away, they don't survive. They don't live for very long. Another fact is that humans are mortal. Gods are immortal. This is a basic fact. The one thing that separates a human from a god is that humans are mortal. They experience death. Gods are immortal. They do not experience death. They are not subject to death. So, an indisputable fact is that humans are not gods. And that at some point, if you are a human, the verifying fact of this is that you will someday die. You will experience death, the death of the body. So there's another fact that is quite interesting, actually. It is a Christian fact that Jesus worshipped a God. Now, the reason we are addressing him as a God is because Christians worship Jesus as a God. And we're going to delve into this topic, just kind of go into this. So the first thing that we want to do is verify that Jesus worshipped a God. So in the book of Luke, in the New Testament book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 12, it reads, "And Jesus continued all night in prayer to God." The original Greek word for prayer is proseuchomai, which means to worship, supplication. Jesus offered worship and supplication to the God of Israel all night. Matthew 26 and 36, Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go and pray to the God of Israel." Proseuche, meaning to worship. In the book of Mark, chapter 14, verse 35, it reads, "Jesus fell on the ground in distress and prayed that if it were possible, the hour of death might pass from him." In Hebrews chapter 5, verse 7, we read, "Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death." The original Greek words for prayers and supplication, prayers is deesis. The word means need or seeking, asking, or entreating of God. The original Greek word for supplications is iketeria, an appeal to a higher power for assistance or help. Jesus, in his hour of need, when he was approaching the hour to be crucified, he cried out, the scriptures say, with strong crying and tears. They're making it very, very clear that he was in great distress and fear of dying, of facing this horrendous death. Now, the word worship in our English language means reverent love or devotion towards a deity, an idol, or a sacred object. Devotion is usually expressed in ceremonies, rituals, or other religious forms to show the love expressed towards these deities or idols or sacred objects. Jesus worshipped the God of Israel. This is evident. This is a biblically aligned and verified fact. Now, so this is both unique and puzzling because Christians have come to worship Jesus as a God. Some declare him to be a God. Some declare him to be the Son of a God, or the Son of God, the God of Israel in particular. And some Christian sects have declared him to be the actual God of Israel. But when considering the facts of the matter, we know that Jesus wasn't crying to himself to save himself and to spare for himself, to spare his own life. That would be, we know he wasn't worshiping himself. That would be seriously concerning on a mentally disturbing level. Iketeria establishes that he was appealing to a higher power other than himself. People are still claiming that he is the God of Israel, shows a lack of education and clarity regarding Jesus' true identity and origin. So the scriptures, without doubt, convey to us that Jesus actually worshipped the God of Israel, and there were moments in scripture where he didn't just worship him, he cried out to him. He pleaded with him. The scripture says with strong crying and tears to spare his life, to spare his life. And this presents a very interesting situation for us. It presents a situation of a proclaimed God, because the Christians proclaim that Jesus is a God, a proclaimed God praying and begging for the assistance of another God for mercy. Now, if you're okay with your God worshiping or crying out for help and mercy to another God, then that's your prerogative. You can do that. But for me, that doesn't quite sit right with me. That's to plead with someone else for mercy immediately implicates that you're not the one in control. You're not the one in charge. And that means that there is one who is more powerful and mightier than you. You're at their mercy, meaning you're not the boss. And this is blunt, obvious fact. Jesus demonstrated in his hour of need and throughout his life that he needed the God of Israel. He needed his mercy. He needed his wisdom. He prayed to him to spare his life. Despite what we're told concerning Jesus and his power and his control over things, the facts are pretty evident that he worshipped and pleaded for the help of another God. Based on this biblical evidence, we are given three major revelations in this. And the first one is that Jesus did not have control over his own life. He pleaded with the God of Israel to spare his life. And that reveals to us that he is not the source of life. The one he cried out to was the source of life, which is the God of Israel, which coincides with the original Testament, because the original Testament states that all life comes from the God of Israel. The second thing that we see, or revelation that we get from this information, is that Jesus did not have control over his own death. He did not have control over death itself. Some Christians state that, Jesus defeated death. Well, when you look at the reality of that, I want to give you a really hard reality. Go stand in a graveyard and count the crosses. Jesus, he didn't defeat death. He died. This shows us that there is only one who controls death. The scripture stated that Jesus cried out unto him that was able to save him from death. There is only one who can save you from death, and that's the one who created it. In the original Testament scriptures, death is personified and does the bidding of the God of Israel. Death is defined as the termination of life, which is the death of the body. It's not a spiritual death. It's the death of the body. Remember, immortal does not mean you die and then you're resurrected. That's not immortal. Immortal is you never experience death. Jesus experienced death. The third revelation that we get from this information is a very powerful one and very significant one, and that is Jesus is not the God of Israel. Now, why is this last one extremely significant? Because this information places Jesus and the God of Israel as two distinct, separate beings, as two totally separate, distinct beings, despite what we're told. Now, I want you to understand something. The God of Israel, his name means the eternal one, meaning he's never experienced death, and he never will. Hear what I'm saying to you. No part of him dies. No part of him dies. He's immortal. He doesn't experience death. He designed death for mortals, for humans, and things that has his life. And he takes it when he chooses. He's immortal. Man is subject to death, not the eternal one. Jesus died. Do you see the separation? He does not die. The God of Israel, the eternal one, does not experience death on any level. On any level. No part of him dies. And it may take you a moment, because it took me a moment to just take a moment and let that soak in. He does not die. Jesus died. It's not dying and being resurrected. That's not immortal, and that's not eternal. Mortal is that you experience death. It's the fact of experiencing death. Jesus experienced death. Now, why is it so significant that these two are separate entities? Because this concept introduces polytheism, the worship of more than one God. And that's significantly grievous when speaking of the God of Israel. Because the God of Israel declared, "You shall have no other God equal to, beside, or apart from him, that he alone is God and no one else. He sits alone. He governs alone. He rules the world alone." This is what he has declared. So when you introduce another being and say, "He's like you," he is you. This is what individuals are saying. Man, not the God of Israel. And who are you going to listen to? What the God of Israel has said about himself? He has declared that he alone is God, and there can be no other. Which God do you serve? Who do you worship as God?